self-awareness is one of the key things to start of doing anything about it. So that being said, I think which I really like about the mantra which you have is, I think, living life by a design, not by default. Is it something you came up with yourself? You found so I really love this quote. So how do you get this quote? Maybe I'll ask you that.
It's pretty much the way I have designed my life and co-created my life with the universe, particularly so in the last few years of my being more self-aware. And I'm glad that you bring up the topic of self-awareness, because self-awareness is key. If you are a leader in an organization, what we always say is first leading self and then leading others. If you cannot lead yourself, if you cannot coach yourself, then you probably won't be a great leader in itself.
Welcome, everyone, and thanks for listening and subscribing so far and pouring so much love, as I mentioned in our previous podcast as well, to Let's Talk, which is a podcast for human skills and mindset. Today, I am in discussion with Myah Payel Mitra. So just to give some, just to unwrap what you mentioned, one of the things which I learned is it's not always, and I think this is, I would like to stress everyone who is listening or viewing this, is that you don't have to, first of all, be perfect, that once you get to a particular stage, only we are going to get started. As you mentioned, that while you are pondering about what are the things which I love, you're also simultaneously doing certain things, like you are getting certified by the movement therapy. You are also starting still flow with your friend. So these are the things will show that they always be some movement in that perspective, right? There should be some process.
Yes. So this is the fun part. Like, what is the difference between a dream and a reality? What's the difference between a dream and a reality? It's the action. The bridge is the action. If we miss it, it just remains a dream. That's it.
Yeah. So we just have to start doing what we believe in, and we don't have to
Absolutely.
wait, right? And this is something you might get positive and negative feedback, but eventually, if you are happy, those good vibes will spread across, and then definitely there will be one time when you will be like, okay, glad I did it. And there are so many stories about a lot of leaders who have, who failed multiple times. If you likes of Richard Branson and all, we only know his successful ventures, but what about like 200 or 300 failed projects in his lifetime? So there are a lot of things around that part as well. So let me unwrap one of the things which I'm very curious about, your visit to San Francisco and meeting Cheryl. Now, meeting that personality, she is the chief operating officer at Meta, and then help us walk through what was that journey looks like. What kind of things you learn from her in terms of the interaction, and what's your take of why these people are where they are at this point, these personalities? Like what exactly the learning you got it? Help us walk through that experience.
Sure. She is an extremely humble person, and we have sat across in the same space, in the same room, and had long conversations. And even to this date, when we have these conversations now via online, I can clearly see that she has her heart in what she does. And right now, when we're talking about, and for me, my journey of following Sheryl Sandberg started from the day when I read Lean In, the book.
Yeah.
That was also one of the, I'm a woman in tech, and therefore, many a times I've had the only woman experience. And when I started reading this book, every experience seemed like, oh my God, I've been through this. And is this the way it happens with other women as well around the world? So for me, it was really, a mind boggling in many ways, that my experience is not different from many other women across the world who are primarily probably a woman in tech kind of a space. And therefore, many of the things, and I think she's been one of the pioneers in that space where she has created more space for women in tech and talking very proactively about some of the challenges and issues that women in tech have. And one thing she clearly advocates, and I'm really happy that somebody at her stature talks so much about it, is about equal partnership both at work and in life. So this is one key thing that she mentions. And I think many people probably do not even have either read or heard about the book called Option B, which is the second book that Cheryl had written. It was at the time when she had lost her first husband, and she had spoken about her own grieving process. And I think for a person at her stature, when somebody can actually talk about their own vulnerable journey and sharing, and then have someone like an Adam Grant, who's an organizational psychologist, talk about the psychology part of it, that not only makes a great read, it actually is a life lesson. Because again, when I was going through my traumatic breakup with my in my previous relationship, this was a book which kind of gave me an understanding that grieving is a process. It's not that it's not permanent, that there is a loss, there is a separation, but then it's a temporary process, right? And therefore the book, then the name of the book itself is Option B. When you do not have the option A, you go to the option B. So in case you haven't read it or heard about it, I mean, for people who are probably in that in a space of experiencing grief or loss or in any ways, this is a great book to go by. So I think these were some of the things that I took away for me as a personal learning. And when I got to meet her, it was not just her, it was women from around the world. We were 90 women from around the world who are leaders in our own space. Every one of us doing great work in the women's leadership space across different geographies. And what I thought is probably an India only problem or my region only problem seemed like, no, it isn't. Women across the world have a common set of challenges. And so this forum, Lean In, is a forum where we talk about it openly. We bring more awareness. We develop tools, techniques, methodologies, and come out with research to help women in becoming better leaders at life and at work. And so that's been my journey with Lean In so far.
Great. So, so as you discuss about all these women and other societal related issues in general, so what are the actions you take in Lean In? I mean, do you kind of go through? You are the regional lead, which means are you regional lead of India or like South Asia subcontinent? How exactly it works?
So it's not really geography specific.
Hmm.
It depends on what you are working on. It can be geography specific, but it depends. So my circle is primarily the network that I lead. It is based on sustainable work. So for me, it cuts across the globe. So therefore, it is not geography specific, but there are certain networks which are geography specific. So it depends on the leader who is leading the network as to what they want to bring. And so therefore, if there is a Lean In Latina, which is specifically in a particular geography, they
Hmm.
would be looking at some of the challenges and issues of that particular, group of women. For
Got it.
me, it isn't. Yeah.
So let's discuss about you're doing so much about the women empowerment in society, some of the issues related to youth and human trafficking. Uh, do you have any kind of experience which is noteworthy or you would like to share, which really moved you? Because apart from your own personal experience, which you have undergone in all these things, I'm sure there must be something which really shaken you to the core in terms of wow, okay, and you get a very deep understanding of life or things in general which normally people may not have experienced. So anything you would like to share from your experience of the overall society initiatives you are doing so far?
So if I were to go back and think of this, sort of at the time when I was training, to get trained as a certified movement therapy practitioner, and was volunteering for certain not-for-profit organizations, there are two experiences or two incidents that kind of clearly, stand out in my memory. And this was at a time when I was working at KPMG, one of the largest Big Four MNCs in the world. And so, coming in from a Big Four management consulting background, you understand the world that we live in when you are in a Big Four management consulting world. And thereafter, going and working with women from a human trafficking background, I think it was two different dimensions or views of the world that was like immediately the stark difference was extremely jarring, to speak the least. So I think that was the first thing I noticed and I observed, because here I was, a management consultant. I was working with CXOs, I was working with leaders in large organizations, I was closing deals, and now I was actually at a very grassroots level, and I was seeing how women were struggling to even be comfortable in their bodies. And so that was a extremely powerful moment for me, that there is so much more to life than actually just sitting in a cubicle and perhaps trying to crack a deal. So that was one incident that kind of shook me. That was one. And the second, I think, was um, when I was actually doing this movement therapy workshop with a group of women, in a mental health ward. And So during the workshop, we had given them some uh, I mean, there was a movement therapy, and they had given them some art supplies, basically, so that they can doodle, write, or draw or paint at the end of the session, so that they could share what was happening. And there was this one woman, and I clearly remember her having shared this experience of now this is a woman who is in a mental health ward in a hospital, just to give you that context. And she came out crying in that workshop at the towards the end, saying that it was her father's death anniversary. And she shared that, today being my father's death anniversary, generally I always feel sad and I cry and I sit alone in my room. But today, because of you having come here and having made us laugh, dance, move, I'm somehow feeling happy. Happy as in not happy, but happy as in, like, I'm just feeling okay with everything, and somewhere it's just making me feel, that life is beautiful nonetheless. And so I think that was a great lesson and a great, I mean, for me, I think it was a great takeaway also, because these are the joys that you have of life, the small perks of life that you have. And I think, therefore, it made me it makes so much more, meaningful to work in a space that actually gives you fulfillment more than anything else. And these are joys that no money can buy. And I think, for me, when I had these experiences, she came and she hugged me, and she had these tears of joy in her eyes. For me, it felt extremely satisfying at a deeply personal level, knowing that I have made somebody feel better today.
Well,
And I
yeah.
think that was a really beautiful moment. Somewhere I knew that this is the work I wanted to do, to be able to, help people unlock their potential, to really work with their fears. and and many a times in my workshops, if people cry at the end of it, I know that this has been a successful workshop.
Yeah, I think that's so touching. I mean, when you do these workshop and people are pretty elated, they're happy, or I think it's one of those satisfying moments, I would say, which makes you think and reinforces that whatever you're doing is really
Yeah,
worthy.
so true.
Otherwise, a lot of things which we don't like, and again, as I mentioned, that based on the society, it seems successful, and you're not happy about it. So those are
Hmm.
some of these examples. And I think somewhere or the other, if we are again getting more aware, we try to, every human being has some point in their life which gives them that inner peace and joy of doing certain activity. It can be anything, but then they try to ignore it and then get into the hustle and bustles of life. So that is uh, so true. So are you still doing these apart from your coaching endeavors, which you're doing with different organizations? Are you still actively doing these philanthropic or society-related social work as well?
Yes, I do work with certain,
Hmm.
organizations in pro bono capacity where I do, again, I'm primarily associated with a large number of organizations who are in the women's empowerment, women's leadership space. So I do work as, as in-house coaches. I'm part of the largest, actually, it's one of the largest um, women's financial literacy campaign run by Google and She Rose. It's called She Will. I keep forgetting the name,
Hmm.
but pardon me on that. But
Hmm.
there's this campaign that is She Will Win. I think so. Sorry,
Hmm.
I'll you'll have to
Sure,
pardon
that's
me for
fine.
that. But
Yeah.
basically, yeah. So basically, the campaign that they are running, I'm a part of the ecosystem, and I am a mentor for them and a coach for them. So again, being part of this ecosystem, I help women entrepreneurs in being able to work through some of their business challenges, whether it is with relationship to building your personal brand, or whether it is in relationship to working through your fears of how do you become a entrepreneur, a woman entrepreneur specifically. So yes, again, I'm working with certain organizations in the women's empowerment space from a pro bono capacity.
Perfect. So now, when you're doing all these employee engagement programs and all activities, going to different organizations, so far, uh, let's discuss about some of the key takeaways in terms of the people who are viewing and listening this podcast. What are the key things which you have observed and provide the feedback to the employees in the organization? Like, what are the common concerns across the
Hmm.
board which you have seen, and maybe some tips about how do they overcome some of the challenges?
Right. So there are a couple of things, which is happening in the world at the moment, and as I think most people who are listening or watching this might want to agree, is that the Great Resignation is for real, right? And at the same time, hybrid workplaces are here to stay. So there is and if you look at the statistics and the data, the 48% of employees or 48% of people have actually reported having experienced immense amount of stress in the last 1 year alone. 48%, that's almost like half the number of people who were surveyed. And this is the key word to kind of emphasize here is reported. This is what has been reported. But what about the ones who have not reported, which therefore means that it is more than 50%, right? So a huge number of a mammoth number of people have actually experienced and are experiencing burnout challenges, depression, workplace mental stress, all of this, which perhaps in many ways is also leading to the Great Resignation, which perhaps in many ways is also leading to what we call as the quiet quitting. The quiet quitting, wherein people are there in the organization but they are not really there because they are disengaged, they are low on employee morale, and they're just hanging in there because the moment there is another great opportunity thrown their way, they are out. So these are some of the problems which most organizations are sitting with, the amount of attrition that is happening across industries, across countries, which is for real. And then the human resources, the CHROs or the HR professionals are really struggling with how can we bring the employees back to work from office. Working from office itself is now becoming extremely challenging for many people, because in the last 2.5 years we have been used to a certain way of working. And again, when you are asking people to commute for 2 hours and again go to a, go to an office space, many people are actually willing to resign rather than go back to work from office. So these are real challenges and issues that many organizations are sitting with. And then you kind of look at the other set of challenges, which is primarily on the workforces, basically the remotely onboarded workforce. In the last 2.5 years, a large number of employees actually got onboarded remotely. So they never got an opportunity to even meet their colleagues or peers for that matter. And so, therefore, how can we build an organization of psychological safety, an organization of collaboration, an organization of trust, when people have not even interacted or met in real person, and there is no substitute for really meeting in person, because there is this is a primary need that we have as human beings, the need for connection, the need for human connection. And so, therefore, the need for connection in hybrid workplaces have gone up because our social interactions are decreasing. So therefore, this is where we are sitting. And so largely most organizations are facing the heat and facing the pull, the pinch of it. And so my work as a somatic leadership coach comes in that space of helping teams, individuals, and organizations to get re-energized, to get reinvigorated with that new boost of energy, so that they can have more collaborative efforts, they can build a highly engaged and motivated workforce, they can have people working with larger collaborative efforts, with more psychological safety and lesser conflicts in teams.
Okay. So, with these challenges, what is your advice to the employees, like who are facing this dilemma of hybrid workplace culture now, or maybe they are having some burnout issues? What are the key things which you can advise to a person? Maybe if I'm like coming to you and say that, Myah, these are some of the challenges. Obviously, it would entails a longer discussion. But what are the key things to just rejig my thought process, or maybe what are the questions I should be asking myself to
Sure.
as a kind of a key takeaway from that?
Sure. So if there is, if you are struggling with the, let's say, the hybrid work model, and perhaps unwilling to go back to work from the office space, I think it definitely makes a lot of sense to really look at how work has shaped up in the last 2.5 years. What are the pros and cons that look like for you at an individual level, and then look at it from an organizational level. That on an individual level, these are the 5 or 10 or 20 different things which are my pros of working from home, and therefore I would like to continue, right? And what could be some of the cons? The cons could be, okay, there are no water cooler conversations with my peers. I don't have, the conversations with my colleagues are primarily now only transactional. It's no longer relational. It is just transactional, meaning, okay, what about the project deadline? Have we finished the task? So on and so forth. So these are some of the questions that one could ask themselves and sit with. And thereafter, once you have done your own internal reflection, it would be a good idea to have a conversation with your supervisor, your manager, your leader, your HR person at the organization, to give them a lowdown of your thinking process, that this is what it is for me, and if I were to go back to work, I may have to travel for 2 hours or whatever it is. And so, is there a way we could work out a win-win solution? Many a times communication is what stops us from getting what we want. If you never ask, the answer is always no. That's what it is, right? If you never ask, the answer is always no. Go ahead and ask.
Yeah.
What exactly is where is it that the shoe is pinching? What is the resistance that you have to going back to work from office? Make it very very I mean, have those bullet points and make it very objective. When you can clearly articulate your thought process, the person or the people who are sitting on the other side of the table, they will also be able to understand your point of view and also appreciate their point of view, because they also have a certain way of looking at things, and then come out with a solution which is win-win. Can we look at, okay, working 2 days from the office or whatever it is, and really also question, because some of the times there are certain nature of work and certain nature of industries that may not allow hybrid as a model, that may not allow work from home as a model. So one has to be really I would say mindful of that fact when asking this question, like, is this the norm in my industry, or is this how I can really operate? Can I work in silo, sitting in a beach in Honolulu or Hawaii, and perhaps still be able to deliver my work across different time zones? Is it really practical? Is it realistic? I think these are questions one need to ask, and once you have these answers, have a candid chat with your with your organizational leads, and then I think you'll be able to come to a clear win-win solution, and base your decision basis that, I would say. That's to answer your question on the hybrid work model. Now, coming to your second part of the question, which was on the burnout and the stress. How does one work with burnout stress? Now, this is something which is extremely. I'm actually glad to see that a large part of organizations, many forward-thinking organizations, actually are making this a very mainstream conversation, right? I mean, Ariana Huffington is really one person who's extremely vocal about workplace mental health issues, and there's so much that is written about and is being spoken about. But I think the more we talk about it, the more we spread awareness. Yet there is so much more that can be done and needs to be done, because at the end of the day, having your EAP, which is your employee assistance program, which perhaps is, you have a number that you can call up to when you're feeling suicidal, you're feeling low, you're just not in the mood for anything. But this is again, if you look at it, the data, the utility is extremely low. The usage is extremely low, because when people are feeling suicidal, sad, or dejected, they are not going to call up a number and talk to a person. Chances are extremely slim. And so therefore there is a difference between proactive versus reactive. EAP is mostly a reactive process. You feel agitated, you feel suicidal, you feel depressed, call a number. It's like call 911 if you have a emergency situation. It's perhaps in that model. But what about when one incident after another incident, you're getting battered, you're getting hammered, and it's just building up in your body? You can feel the energy, you can feel the angst, you can feel the anger, you can feel that you are not feeling like yourself, and it just doesn't happen overnight. It gets built over a period of time, and there comes a point when the volcano just erupts. So why wait for the volcano to erupt when you can actually take a proactive measure of really being mindful of your energy, really being mindful of your emotion and hygiene? And so therefore, probably practicing or incorporating some self-care within your daily routine. Self-care could be in the form of multiple things. It could be multiple things for different category of people. Like, I know for sure, for you and me, I think both, we love running. So for me, running is also, it's meditative, it's therapeutic. Some people may not take up to running. For others, it could be just a quiet walk in the park, or maybe just walking your dog. Whatever it is, try and find out that 10 minutes. Even if it is difficult to find 30 minutes, try and find out that 10 minutes of me time when you can really spend the time to be by yourself and do something that you totally, absolutely love. It could be gardening, it could be baking, it could be walking the dog, whatever it is. So when we give ourselves these micro moments or these micro doses of creating happiness, of creating that, that space in the mind, where that space in the mind and the space in the body where you can just be, allow yourself to be, that is again a very proactive way of working through your mental agony which get built up over a period of time. We do not want to reach there. So this is one way of working through it. But if you are on the verge of, you've already reached that acme of just having that, that outburst on your next office meeting that is about to happen, you just blurt out, and or maybe you just blurt out all the anger on your partner or your child. Those are moments that you have to really think, take a pause and think of everything that has happened before that, that has actually aggravated you to move towards this direction. And the interesting fact is that many a times the person to which we actually blurt out the anger or the frustration is not really the person who triggered it in the first place.
Yeah, that's so true. I think in summary, it's all taking those micro steps in order to, you don't have to take big steps because otherwise you will never get started in most of the scenarios. And the other thing is, rather than looking for the right answers, try to look for the right questions, so that
Yes, I love that.
you
Yes.
you really have to take one step at a time. So that's
Absolutely.
very good conversation. I think I can go on, but let's get into the last part of our conversation. I would say it's in two parts. One is about any kind of books which you can recommend, and what are your favorite books around there. And the next part would be, if people would like to reach you, what are the different mediums to reach out and engage you in different capacities?
Sure. On the books part, okay. So, what kind of book recommendation would you like me to give? Actually, sort of. I mean, it's almost like
I mean, maybe a
I,
self-help book, yeah, self-help or business book, or more towards your area of expertise about the career, entrepreneurship, engagement.
Mhm. Okay, so one book that I really loved reading and I talk a lot about, it really helped me in understanding or, looking at life differently, is the top, I think it's called The Five Regrets of the Dying. Uh, that's one book I would really love to recommend to people who really want to understand the meaning of life. One of the top regrets of the dying is, I wish I had done that. For me, I realize that I do not want to live a life of regret, and therefore I do not want to live with that I wish I had done that. I would rather go ahead and do it and find my way through it. Whether you succeed or fail, that's a question for a different day, but then at least do not have that I wish. So that's one book I would highly recommend. The second book I think I would really recommend for mostly women leaders or entrepreneurs out there, is Becoming. Michelle Obama's book,
Yeah,
autobiography,
yeah.
Becoming. I think that book also, personally, that book transformed me and shaped my own experience of having worked through imposter syndrome. In the book Lean In, also Sheryl Sandberg talks about imposter syndrome. So when somebody like Michelle Obama was being told that you cannot be in Princeton, you are no Princeton material, right? And then she becomes who she is in the world today. I think there's a deep meaning that one needs to know, that when you understand the value that you bring on board, don't let the world tell you who you are and what you can and what you cannot do. I think for me as well, when everybody in this world, including my parents, my closed ones, my friends, say that this was a bad idea to leave to leave your secure job and fat paycheck and to try and chase a random dream which we don't even know if it works, if it has a future or no. But at the end of the day, I kind of went back to the top regrets of the dying, saying, but hey, I don't want to sit on my deathbed regretting that I wish I had tried. So I think both of these books, in many ways, have shaped and transformed my own personal journey. And for anyone who's on the fence of do I want to do this or do I want to do that, if you are in that catch 22, perhaps try and give it a read and see how it may change and transform or inform your life, if at all. So yes, what was the other
Perfect.
question that you had
Yeah.
towards the end?
No, that these are great books. Definitely, I'll put it in my wish list. Becoming is something which I have planned, but it's in my wish list, so I'll try to read that. The next question is about if people would like to reach out to you and learn more or engaged in different capacities, whether through the organization or maybe one-on-one session. What are the mediums they can reach out to you?
Sure, sure. Thanks for asking this, Saurabh. So I'm actually most active on LinkedIn, like probably you also mentioned towards the beginning. So
Yes.
anyone who wants to reach out to me can send me a direct message on LinkedIn, and I'm most active there. That's the quickest and the fastest way to get a response. And definitely, if you hop onto my LinkedIn, you will see most of the work that I'm doing in the space of movement therapy, in the space of somatic leadership, and working with teams, organizations, and individuals. I do offer private one-on-one sessions to individuals who want to experience movement therapy, who want to work on themselves. Definitely, that's there. And I also do help individuals work on their career transitions, like I mentioned towards the beginning. If you are someone who wants to perhaps jump I would say jump industries or switch industries, or who is someone who's feeling stuck in your career and don't know if this is what is where my heart is, or you have an entrepreneurial dream, you have a business idea, but somewhere you are just sitting on the fence, you are unable to take action, feel free to contact me, and more than happy to help in whatever capacity I can.
Wonderful. That being said, Myah, thank you so much for providing your insights, all these anecdotal experience, meeting with different personalities, your own challenges, and then towards the end, you provide some advice to the people out there. Pretty much, I would say it provides a lot of value, at least to me. And when people would look into that, they also get a lot of value out of this podcast. So thank you so
Mhm.
much for coming and providing these information in Let's Talk.
Thanks so much for having me, Saurav. It was indeed a great honor and pleasure to be talking to you today.
Yeah, likewise.